Sally delivering value and interpreting great books from around the world.
Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, the book I'm interpreting for you is Dog Wisdom, with the title, What Are They Thinking? Dogs are humans' closest friends. Archaeologists have proven that humans have domesticated dogs for over 14,000 years. However, regarding the inner world of dogs, many people don't understand. Can dogs think? How is the world in their eyes different from that in humans' eyes? Regarding these questions, people have many different views. What is the truth? The author of this book, Stanley Coren, is a psychology professor at the University of British Columbia in Canada and also a renowned expert in canine behavior research and training. He is often asked questions related to dogs. After the sensational O.J. Simpson murder case in the U.S., a lawyer asked him to meet with Cato, the Simpsons' dog, to communicate and see if there was a way to have Cato serve as an eyewitness to identify the killer. This kind of question made Coren both laugh and cry. Dogs simply don't have the ability to judge a case that happened 9 months ago. So Coren jokingly asked, "Do you want him to bark once for yes, twice for no?"
Unexpectedly, the lawyer got very excited and asked him, "Can you do that?"
This made Coren even more embarrassed. Coren wrote this book to help people understand dogs more deeply. This book combines the latest research findings and fascinating cases to introduce how dogs see the world and take action. And Coren also provides advice on how to communicate more smoothly with dogs. Next, I'll interpret the main content of the book for you through 4 parts. First, how do dogs perceive this world? Second, do dogs have consciousness? Third, what are some misunderstandings people have about dogs? Fourth, how to get along harmoniously with dogs. Let's start with the first part, how dogs perceive this world. The author introduces various sensory characteristics of dogs, and here I'll focus on their vision and smell. First, vision. Dogs have 3 main visual characteristics. The first is that their static vision is poor, but their dynamic vision is strong. When we do vision tests, we look at an eye chart. The smallest letter we can see clearly represents the level of vision. If a similar method is used to test dogs' vision, it's found that dogs' vision is much weaker than humans. To date, the dog with the best tested vision is a poodle from Hamburg, Germany, but the smallest pattern it can recognize is 6 times larger than the smallest pattern the human eye can recognize. This poodle can barely see things 6 meters away, while a person with normal vision can see things 23 meters away. And this is the dog with the best vision. Other dogs have even worse eyesight. The author gave an example from his own experience. One time, his dogs were playing in the yard. The author slowly walked out of the house and noticed all the dogs stopped and stared at him. As the author slowly approached, the dogs all arched their backs, adopting a hostile posture. But as soon as the author spoke to them, the dogs immediately relaxed and ran towards him. This is because dogs' static vision is too poor. They can't recognize things if they're just a bit far away. And dogs can't recognize the author's facial features. They can only identify him by his voice. Another reason is that the author deliberately slowed his pace, approaching them very slowly. If the author approached at a normal speed, the dogs could recognize him using their dynamic vision. Humans evolved from apes, who mainly survived by gathering fruits, so they needed sharp static vision to find nuts and berries in the bushes. Whereas dogs' ancestors were carnivores that hunted for a living. They needed to chase prey while running fast, which required them to have good dynamic vision. How good is dogs' dynamic vision?
A study on police dogs found that when an object is moving, dogs can recognize it even at 900 meters away, and some dogs have even better dynamic vision.
The author's friend Charlie has a greyhound named Jenny. The author conducted an experiment where Charlie and 2 other people stood 1.5 kilometers away, each 30 meters apart. Then Charlie's son asked Jenny, "Where is Charlie?" Jenny carefully observed the distance, turned around, and was slow to act. Then, the authors signaled for the three people in the distance to wave their arms. From the author's perspective, it was almost impossible to see what movements they were making. He couldn't even tell their genders. Well, but this time, Jenny looked into the distance and quickly identified Charlie's direction, running towards him. The second characteristic of dogs' vision is that they are very sensitive to low light. Dogs are primarily active at dawn and dusk, so they need to see clearly in dim light. Dogs' eyes have many structures designed for this purpose, such as their pupils being particularly large to allow more light to enter the eyes. Additionally, dogs' retinas have a high number of rod cells, which are photoreceptor cells specialized for detecting dim light. Dogs have another special structure in their eyes called the tapetum lucidum, located behind the retina. It acts like a mirror, reflecting light missed by the photoreceptor cells back to the retina. The tapetum lucidum also processes the light further, changing the wavelength to make it easier for rod cells to detect, thus enhancing sensitivity to light. If light shines into a dog's eyes at night, you'll see their eyes glow with a strange blue or yellow color. This is because the tapetum lucidum alters the wavelength of incoming light. All these factors together give dogs far superior vision in low light compared to humans. It's estimated that dogs need only a quarter of the light humans require to see clearly at night. Even more impressive than dogs are cats. As true nocturnal hunters, cats need only 1/7 of the light humans do to see objects clearly. The third characteristic of dogs' vision is their insensitivity to color. As mentioned earlier, dogs have a high proportion of rod cells in their retinas, which lowers the proportion of another type called cone cells. One function of cone cells is color discrimination. Humans have 3 types for recognizing red, blue, and green. So the colors we see are essentially combinations of red, blue, and green, and deficiencies in these cones cause color blindness or weakness.
The most common cause is the absence of one type of cone cell.
Dogs are similar. They have only 2 types of cone cells, one for detecting blue and the other for yellow. Therefore, in a dog's eyes, green, yellow, and orange all look similar to yellow, while purple and blue appear alike, and red is hard to distinguish. Dogs might see red as dark gray or even black.
Understanding this, we can choose more suitable toys for dogs.
Nowadays, some balls for dogs are made orange, with manufacturers intending orange to be eye-catching for easy retrieval by people. But for dogs, both orange and green appear yellow. If you throw an orange ball on the grass and tell your dog to fetch it, the dog might overlook it and run right past. So when selecting toys for dogs, it's best to include yellow or blue colors and use large blocks of contrasting shades to highlight the shape. For example, toys on grass could have a blue and white color scheme. Having covered vision, let's now discuss the olfactory characteristics of dogs. The smell is the most important sensory system for dogs. For dogs, smell is as important as vision is to humans. Dogs have a special ability called scent work, which allows them to analyze scents, specifically apart from breathing. Simply put, there's a separate space in the upper part of a dog's nasal cavity. When dogs breathe, normally, air passes through the nostrils directly into the lungs. But when dogs are scenting, they interrupt the normal breathing process and store the air containing scents in this space, thus preventing the scents from being exhaled. This allows dogs to take time to analyze the scents slowly. The air stored through scenting eventually reaches a specialized area in the dog's nose for scent analysis. Here, a large number of olfactory cells are concentrated. However, depending on the size and length of the dog's nose, the size of the scent analysis area and the number of olfactory cells vary. And takeaway, generally, dogs with longer and wider noses compared to those with shorter noses like pugs and Pekingese have more olfactory cells and a stronger sense of smell. In Boston's have about 125 million olfactory cells, while German Shepherds have 225 million. In comparison, we humans have only 2 million olfactory receptor cells in our noses. Besides having more olfactory cells, dogs also have more developed brain structures for processing smells. Scientists call this part the olfactory bulb. Regarding smell, although a dog's brain weighs only 1/10 of a human's, its olfactory bulb weighs 4 times that of a human's. All this gives dogs a sensitivity far surpassing humans. There's a substance in sweat called butyric acid. If 1 gram of butyric acid is dissolved and dispersed throughout a 10-story building, people can barely detect the smell. But if the same amount is dispersed over an area of 350 square kilometers, dogs can still smell it. In a study at the University of California, researchers placed termites in some wood blocks and had trained dogs find the blocks with termites. The results showed that dogs had an accuracy rate of 95%, while chemical detectors had less than 50% accuracy. Dogs' extraordinary sense of smell isn't just about sensitivity. They can also distinguish individual scents from mixed odors. Some terrorists use perfume to mask the smell of explosives or wrap explosives in a baby's dirty diaper. Other drug smugglers seal the drugs and submerge them in gasoline, but these tricks are useless against well-trained police dogs. Even with many scents mixed together, police dogs can distinguish each scent to find specific targets. This ability also makes dogs very good at finding people. Oh, wow! Everyone's physiological condition is different, causing variations in the chemical concentrations in their sweat. Combined with differences in race, gender, age, and dietary habits, this creates unique skin odors. Some people also wear perfume or smoke. All these scents blend together, giving each person their own distinctive odor. Dogs' powerful discrimination ability allows them to detect a specific person's scent in busy, complex environments. And since older traces have fainter scents, dogs simply follow the direction where the smell intensifies to track their target. The longest tracking dog the author has seen was a search and rescue hound named Randy. During a mission to find a missing child, Randy sniffed a child's clothing and tracked for 56 kilometers over 5 hours, finally locating the lost child. "Come on, where are you, Randy?" Alicia one morning. In some crime stories, criminals jump into streams to wash off their scent and evade police dogs. This method has limited effectiveness. Dogs' noses are so sharp they can track even with partial scent traces. What really disrupts tracking is extreme weather, like storms where scents get scattered. Additionally, under strong sunlight, scents disappear within 5 or 6 hours. That concludes the first part. We've discussed how dogs perceive the world through vision and smell. Next, in part 2, we'll explore dogs' cognition. Do they possess consciousness? Opinions vary. Some believe dogs act based on their own thoughts. Others argue dogs lack subjective consciousness and their actions are just conditioned reflexes to stimuli, like furry robots. First, note there's no unified standard for what constitutes consciousness in animals. Some scientists set lower thresholds, believing animals storing external information as memories and reacting based on those memories qualifies as consciousness. Others demand higher standards. Animals must possess self-concept and awareness of their own identity to be considered conscious. Currently, the strictest criterion requires animals to not only have self-awareness, but also understand that others possess consciousness. And others' thoughts might differ from their own. Such animals can think through how their actions will make others think and act to achieve goals. Dogs can meet all these criteria for consciousness as mentioned earlier, proving they react based on memories. Next, I'll discuss whether dogs have self-awareness. Biologists study animal self-awareness, often using the mirror test. If an animal recognizes the reflection as itself, it shows self-awareness, but this test doesn't work for dogs. Faced with their reflection, dogs either treat it as another companion or completely ignore it. Some thus believe dogs lack self-awareness, but biologist Mark Bekoff has a different view. He believes dogs rely little on vision. They might not even see clearly what's in the mirror. The mirror test isn't suitable for dogs because smell is their most important sense. And, moreover, dogs are especially sensitive to urine scents. They urinate over other dogs' spots to cover the scent and claim territory. So Beckhoff redesigned an experiment. He had a dog named Jethro. One winter, he spent days collecting snow with Jethro's urine and placed it on Jethro's path. At the same time, he placed snow with other dogs' urine. The results showed that when Jethro encountered snow with other dogs' urine, he spent a long time sniffing. After that, he would urinate on that snow. But if Jethro encountered his own snow, he sniffed briefly and left without doing anything.
Bekoff believes this experiment proves dogs have self-awareness. They can distinguish self from others, knowing what's theirs and what's others.
Besides self-awareness, dogs can also infer others' thoughts and think how to act to achieve their goals. This meets the highest requirement for consciousness. In one experiment, the experimenter placed food on the ground and sternly warned the dog not to eat it. If the experimenter left the room, the dog would immediately run over and grab the food.
Ah!
If the experimenter stayed in the room, the dog was unlikely to touch the food. The most interesting scenario is when the experimenter is in the room but turns away to do other things or simply closes their eyes. Then the dog is highly likely to dash over and snatch the food.
Wow!
Clearly, dogs pay attention to the experimenter's gaze, infer where their attention is focused, and consider the consequences of their actions. Dogs' inference abilities are so advanced that they can even engage in deceptive behavior. A woman shared an amusing story with the author. She owns 2 Dobermans named Rolf and Fanny, both avid bone chewers. One afternoon, Rolf was chewing a bone while Fanny had none. After wandering the room, Fanny suddenly ran to the kitchen's back door, slammed it hard with her front paw to mimic a closing sound, then hid in a hard-to-spot corner near the entrance. The man of the house often entered through the back door, so hearing the impact sound, Rolf assumed he'd returned and dropped his bone to greet him. Once Rolf rushed into the kitchen, Fanny immediately dashed into the room and claimed the bone.
Whether slamming the door to deceive Rolf or hiding strategically to act after he passed, Fanny demonstrated meticulous premeditation and strong cognitive awareness.
The author argues that from an evolutionary perspective, consciousness offers dogs significant advantages. And dogs' canine ancestors were social predators. They needed teamwork to hunt large prey, some setting ambushes while others drove prey into traps. This required advanced planning and predicting prey's thoughts and movements. For dogs' ancestors, consciousness-enhanced inference dramatically boosted survival rates, traits naturally inherited by dogs. All right, let's summarize part 2. Overall, the author believes dogs' self-awareness and inference abilities parallel those of human toddlers aged 2 to 4. Dog owners aren't surprised by this conclusion. To them, their dogs are not only clever and empathetic, but can even read words, count numbers, and possess a sixth sense predicting the future. But is this true or just human misunderstanding? Next, in part 3, we'll explore common misunderstandings about dogs. First, about reading words. The author has a friend named Jim who thinks his golden retriever Hekyao can recognize English letters. Jim printed his 2 daughters' names on cards, Stephanie and Pat. Then he called Hekyao over, showed him both cards and said, "Hekyao, deliver these letters."
After looking at the cards, Hachel accurately delivered each to the right girl.
The author was shocked and suspected Jim might have unintentionally given cues, helping the dog distinguish the cards.
The author reprinted the cards himself and gave them to Hekyao, who still completed the task correctly.
Now it was Jim's turn to be amazed. He noticed the author's reprinted cards used lowercase letters, which he'd never taught Hekyao. This helped the author finally understand. Hekyao wasn't recognizing letters at all. He distinguished cards by content length. Even with meaningless gibberish on cards, Hekyao would give longer text to Stephanie and shorter to Pat. Others might show a cat photo, then asked dogs to pick the cat card to prove literacy. This performance has flaws too. People expecting the dog to choose cat naturally gaze at that card. Dogs likely notice this gaze and select accordingly. Now, about counting, some performances show owners displaying 2 cards, then dogs picking the 4 card. The author believes this doesn't prove dogs recognize number symbols. They may follow owners' gazes, though dogs do have basic math abilities. The author met a Labrador named Boko who could count to 5. Here's how. The author would pick a number, say 4, throw 4 plastic bumpers, and have Boko retrieve them. Each time Boko brought back a bumper, the author would say, Boko brought back the bumper. When 4 were retrieved, if told to keep searching, Boko wouldn't move. He'd lift his head, bark once, then sit down. This shows Boko understands quantity concepts, can count simply, and knows when all are retrieved, though he maxes out at 5. He would make mistakes. Another study also indicates that dogs can perform simple addition and subtraction. Researchers first show dogs a pile of dog food, then place a screen between the dog and the food. Then, under the dog's watch, the researcher places another pile of dog food behind the screen. If dogs know 1 + 1 = 2, they would predict seeing 2 piles when the screen is removed. However, researchers would tamper by secretly adding or removing a pile behind the screen. So when the screen lifts, the dog might see 1 or 3 piles.
Results show when dogs see 1 or 3 piles, they appear surprised, staring significantly longer. This indicates dogs realize the result contradicts their calculation and feel surprised.
The author believes dogs' mathematical abilities originate from canine ancestors like wolves, who maintained leadership through alliances. Canine build quotes. So, for an alpha wolf, knowing numbers of allies and enemies is essential. For female wolves, counting helps track if all cubs are safe. If one is missing, the mother wolf can promptly search. Next, let's discuss whether dogs have a sixth sense or can predict the future. For example, many believe dogs can predict earthquakes. On February 27, 2001, many dogs in Vancouver, Canada, appeared restless, pacing and ignoring commands. 13 hours later, a 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck, felt across much of Canada. Now, similar reports abound. Hours or days before major quakes, many dogs become anxious, bark aimlessly, or flee homes. Thus, some attribute this to a sixth sense, but this explanation isn't scientific. The author believes it relates to dogs' hearing. Dogs' hearing range far exceeds humans. Humans hear up to 20,000 hertz, while dogs hear 50,000, 60,000 hertz. So, the author found hearing-impaired dogs show no pre-earthquake behavior, while anxious dogs are predominantly small to medium breeds, more sensitive to high frequencies due to physiology. So, the author believes dogs hear high-frequency sounds from underground movements, first causing anxiety. Another predictive ability unrelated to hearing seems miraculous but has scientific explanation. An English dog named Jandy appears to predict owner Pamela's return time, waiting at the window beforehand. Even when Pamela's schedule completely differed from routine, Jandy would still wait by the window early. This phenomenon caught television networks' curiosity. They sent 2 camera crews. One followed Pamela in the city while the other filmed at home. Results showed Jandy ran to the window when Pamela prepared to return. This experiment attracted widespread attention. Jandy was dubbed a psychic dog, but psychologists studying his behavior uncovered the truth. Jandy was a very active dog. After Pamela left, Jandy often ran to the window over 10 times daily, sometimes due to people or cars outside, sometimes just because. So whenever Pamela returned, she might coincidentally find Jandy at the window. Jandy being at the window was purely random probability. Now, observing Jandy's daily routine revealed he often went to the window briefly then left. And people have a cognitive bias, noticing facts supporting their beliefs while ignoring contradicting evidence. So Pamela's family only remembered Jandy at the window when she returned, overlooking that he was often there when she wasn't home. Jandy was frequently at the window, even when Pamela wasn't returning. All right, let's summarize part 3. Dogs can't read, but possess basic math skills, and their superpowers have scientific explanations now that we understand their abilities. Next, in part 4, we'll discuss how to get along harmoniously with dogs and build good relationships. We need to focus on dogs from their early puppyhood. A puppy's first 4 to 12 weeks are called the socialization period, with weeks 5 through 9 being especially critical. During this time, humans should interact with them 20 minutes weekly, playing and petting them. Puppies easily develop trust and closeness with humans this way. They'll later obey commands and accept training more effectively. Besides, eating is a joyful thing for dogs, so feeding is also a great opportunity to build relationships. What you need to do is feed your dog at least once a day. The process goes like this. First, pick up your dog's bowl and show them the food you've prepared. Then, reach out to pet them, talk to them, or gently tug their collar. Finally, you can feed them. This process will strengthen your association with food in your dog's mind. After a while, your dog will connect the happy feelings during mealtime with your appearance, voice, and touch. Just seeing you will trigger the same positive emotions through conditioning, making them delighted to be with you. Using similar methods, we can also create negative associations to prevent unwanted behaviors. For example, some dogs chew shoes or other items at home, a common but tricky problem to solve. This often happens when owners are away, making it impossible to intervene immediately. Punishing the dog afterward isn't very effective either. Given dogs' intelligence level, they struggle to understand they're being punished for something done in the past. A study shows that delaying punishment by just 15 seconds makes it basically ineffective. Only immediate punishment after the misbehavior produces results. So how to stop dogs from chewing things? The author suggests linking shoes with negative emotions for the dog. Here's how. Call your dog to sit beside you, attach a leash to prevent them from running away, then show them the shoe. When their attention is on the shoe, pretend to be furious, bang the shoe around, and yell loudly. Generally, seeing this angry performance will create an unpleasant emotional response in the dog. So, since the dog keeps staring at the shoe, they'll associate this unhappy feeling with it. Repeat this performance multiple times over a few days to reinforce the negative conditioning. All right, let's summarize part 4. To build a harmonious relationship with your dog, we can maintain contact during their socialization period and feed them daily. If dogs develop bad habits, we can use conditioning to create negative associations. Well, that's pretty much it for dog wisdom. We humans tend to anthropomorphize other animals, using our own thinking to analyze and understand them. The author thinks dogs do the same. Maybe they dogify us and other animals, using their canine thinking to understand our actions. From this angle, we and dogs are very similar, each using our own ways to understand each other and the world. All right, dog wisdom. That concludes our interpretation of this book. The reading notes are below the audio. We'll see you next time.